Now 250,000. Now, but to get 275. High, but to get 275. 3. Now 300,000. Now 3 1/4. 325. High, but to get 3 1/4. But to get 325. Now half. Now, but to get 300.
And hello again from Dallas, the center of the world, at the intersection of the LBJ Freeway in Dallas and the North Dallas Tollway at Lincoln Center, and the home of United Real Estate, United Country. We also have United Country Real Estate that's based out of Kansas City. So we've got a lot of things going on, and we have a great show today. And I want to talk about well, the first thing I want to do, I want to introduce our guest. We have Rick Bernstein. He's an award-winning sales consultant and sales trainer, over 20 years of experience in that area of clinical healthcare and healthcare philanthropy. He is also a voice actor. He does voice over work, and in the last 3 months, I guess he's an auctioneer. And he attended America's Auction Academy here in Dallas, and that's how we met. Good to have you on, Rick. This is our very first remote broadcast, so you're the first one to do this with us, so hopefully everything will go smooth.
I remember us being a class of first when we were with you in June of this year, so it's good to be first again. Thanks.
You bet. Good to have you. Now, I know you're in Virginia, and Virginia today, but you do a lot of work on the East Coast in Canada, and you work a lot of events and things in D.C. Why don't you just give us a little overview of what Bernstein Solutions is?
Absolutely. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate the time to be on your show. Yeah, so Bernstein Solutions is an organization. It's a small boutique consultancy that I founded in 2019, and it's really designed to creatively deepen not-for-profit supporter relationships and increase fundraising. And we do that in about 5 ways. The first way is drawing on my experience working with not-for-profits as a sales consultant, and actually coming up with a strategic vision for the organization. So sitting with them and listening to who their people are, their processes, their technologies and systems, and understanding really how I can help them and what's the right path to take forward. So first and foremost is that consulting piece. And then the next 2 are really from what I learned from you in auction school and then beyond through some training and conferences and those sorts of things. One is doing live auctioneering, and that is basically at a benefit event or gala, there being an item that is donated or consigned that attendees can bid on. And it's a fun, unique experience that people feel good about. They get to, bid on a neat experience, but also know that their donation is going towards the mission of the organization. So there's the live auction component, and then there's what they call the fund a need or live appeal. So that's another aspect of what I do the night of the event, actually really touching the audience and reconnecting them with the mission and why everyone is there celebrating that evening. It's not only to connect and have a good time, but it's also to refocus on the mission of that organization and making a difference. And so we do the live appeal. And then the other 2 are related to the event or lead up as well. The 4th service being master of ceremony. So sometimes I'm just an MC. So I just get on stage and I help coordinate the show flow and, being kind of somewhat of an ambassador for the organization and to the attendees to make sure everything's running smoothly, and that everyone is engaged and having a good time. And then 5th, it's a little detached. It's related to the event, but can be detached ahead of time or totally separately, and that's in voice narration. So about 10 years ago, I became a professional voice actor similarly through like auctioneering, going to school, getting trained, cutting a demo, and then sending that demo out to organizations to be their voice for their brand, their service, their product. And so I do that for-profit organizations as well today, as well as doing it on a volunteer basis for institutions like the Smithsonian, narrating their magazines or educational content. So for these organizations under Bernstein Solutions, clients of mine, I will help them with anything educationally that they need narrated. Maybe it's for visually impaired or disabled in some way, shape, or form, or just doing a testimonial video or trying to emotionally connect, the copy to the listener. So that's kind of somewhat in a nutshell of what we do.
Okay, let's kind of go back. Let's take a giant step backwards, because I always like to find out the nuts and bolts behind the person on the microphone. So let's go back to when you were a kid. Where did you grow up?
Yeah, so now we're going back some decades now, but I'm a born Washingtonian. So Washingtonian being D.C., capital of the world. Was born in Washington, and grew up, bounced around a little bit up till about 2 years old, but spent from that time forward until graduating high school in Fredericksburg, Virginia, which is a bedroom community south of Washington, D.C., and just north of Richmond, Virginia. So it's a very historic city. I know there's one in Texas, Fredericksburg, Texas. But it's, growing up there, it was still very rural. It wasn't overdeveloped. It's starting to get that way now, just being so close to those two major metropolitan areas. So, I had a great upbringing. My dad commuted to DC every day. He worked for the government. My mom was a school teacher. She was a speech teacher, so she worked with little ones who had some form of speech issue that she was trying to help them resolve, also special education and that sort of thing. So middle class, very happy. We made up our own fun. We go out and be on our bikes all day and come home for dinner, kind of thing. Certainly no devices to take up our time, for sure.
Yep. So you grew up in Fredericksburg, and I know that area pretty well. Do you have any brothers or sisters?
I do, yeah. So I have an older brother. He's about 5 years older, and I say about because our birthdays are just a few weeks apart. So it rounds up to about 5 years. But yeah, he's up in Philadelphia now. But so we grew up, and it was interesting having a sibling 5 years older, because just as I was getting into a place such as high school, he was just leaving, and so we never really overlapped or had to share or compete, for things. He was kind of over whatever phase I was getting into at the time, but we're still very close to this day. I actually just saw him this week.
Mm-hmm. So you, I'm assuming you went to high school in Fredericksburg. Is that right?
I did. So yeah, Stafford High School. So there's two neighboring counties of Fredericksburg. There's Stafford County to the north, and then there's Spotsylvania County to the south. So I grew up in kind of the southern part of Stafford County, and so there were two high schools when I was growing up. And when I graduated 20 some odd years ago, there was Stafford High School and North Stafford, and I went to Stafford.
So when you get out of high school, what did you do?
Yeah. So, actually, it's funny you ask. The summer after I graduated high school, I actually drove cross country with a friend of mine who grew up in Norfolk. He and I had connected and became involved through religious type affiliations and youth groups and those sorts of things. And somehow we talked our parents into letting us get in a 1992 Nissan Sentra red and drive over 13,000 miles, 32 states over 7 weeks. And so that summer after high school, we went from Norfolk, Virginia. We headed west to about Memphis, then south to New Orleans. We cut across Texas and came up and ended up in California, up to Seattle, and then clear all the way back. So right after high school is when I did that trip, and then I enrolled at James Madison University, where my brother happened to have just graduated, and I spent the next 4.5 years in Harrisonburg, Virginia.
Mm-hmm. And so you graduate with a Bachelor of Business Administration in Computer Information Services Systems. What does that mean?
Yeah, good question. Because it's really evolved so much. When I was graduating in the late 90s, things had just the internet age had just kind of kicked up, and it was really, it was something, right? You're trying to figure out what's going on. A lot of these startup organizations, .coms is what they called them back then, were going. And I looked at that. I actually started college thinking I was going to be a med student and following medicine, because I always promised my grandma I'd be a doctor. Anyway, that didn't work out. But I ended up going the computer information system route, just because there seemed to be a lot of jobs and a lot of opportunity there. So computer information systems, what I did with that when I graduated was, it was actually a very technical role. I came out and I was a software, what they call software engineer or programmer, basically developing language that will talk to machines and make things work, things that we take for granted when we look at our device and just figure it shows up. There's a lot of work done on the back end of that to make something look easy or move easy. So, I found out very early on that was not my life's calling, and so I transitioned. What I will say about my career, it's been a career of pivots and of reinventions of myself. I went from that into consulting and working on a government project for the USDA, and actually working with the Food Nutrition Services branch of the USDA. So I was on site and we were advising them on their systems and computer systems and how they did things, in awarding money for, women and children programs and child nutrition and those sorts of things. And it was really that experience that I started getting into healthcare and just realizing that just the broad expanse of healthcare, how it can just be clean water, it can be food on a table, or it can get into these other things like, fighting cancer and other things. So I did that for a number of years, did the consulting, and then did a full 180 and actually got into clinical healthcare and became a medical device sales representative for a surgical company, basically being an advisor and a supporter of widgets that actually are used in surgery. And so I did that for a long time, and that's really what got me really embedded into the healthcare kind of industry.
You're pretty passionate about that, from what I can tell. And you also,
I am,
and because of children, you're very interested in the health needs and related to children as well.
I did. I think I got a little bit of that from home, because I got a lot of that from home. My dad, who would commute, and he's been past a few years, but he would always make it home to coach my basketball team and to support me and go to my soccer games. And my mom was a school teacher, and she worked with special needs and special ed and in helping them speak and have a normal experience. And so their tending to me as a child was very impactful. And now being a dad and having two little ones of my own, one who's almost 9 and one who just turned 7, I'm very in touch with that and sensitive to that. And so yeah, it has been a passion, and it's neat to be able to kind of carry that forward professionally, but also personally.
Yeah. And I think, I look at the people that are in the auction industry specific, because we're going to talk about that here in a few minutes. But I think those people that, if they do fundraising events, it usually says a lot about their heart, because you have to care about people, you have to love being around people, and you have to be empathetic and in some cases sympathetic, but be paying attention to people. We just did an event last night here in Dallas, and we're talking about the March of Dimes here, and we I had them on the show about 2 weeks ago, and then to see them at the event last night, it was great to see folks that had told their stories, and their stories are very, they'll tear at your heart. When you start hearing about premature babies and you have one child that's outgoing and energetic, and the other one is kind of out there and not necessarily as wound, as tight as the other one. These premature births, they definitely have an impact on the family. It changes a family forever, because in one particular case, she was in the hospital these babies were in the hospital for almost a year before they could even leave. And if you can imagine being a parent and you can't even take your baby home, and because they've been in the hospital for 250 days, it's incredible. It's probably one of the more depressing things that a man and a woman could possibly go through. And I just, I'm still touched by the whole thing just from 2 weeks ago, and then again last night in raising funds for March of Dimes. And I'm sure you have situations like that when you're doing a fundraising event, that especially in the healthcare side of it, you understand it. I mean, you're an intelligent man, so you have that with your children. You see, you have healthy children that function on a daily basis. And when we step back, we get to see everybody else. We get to see the ones that are challenged and are fighting the good fight, but it's hard on their finances. It's hard on their lifestyle. You know, they can't go out. They don't have date nights. You know what I mean? Those kinds of things. What's your perspective on all that?
Yeah, well, becoming a first time, father, I mean, you see firsthand how, literally in the birthing room, how delicate everything is. Visit not only the physical toll that, my wife is undergoing, but then the child, coming out and then what? How are they going to respond to anything externally and digest and drink and, breastfeeding? Does that work? There's so many things to think of. So, just through life experience and having a child, I definitely, my lens of life just, it changes immediately, once you are then responsible for that child. And we are blessed. And there's not a day, an hour, a minute of any day that I take that for granted, having two, healthy children. Now we all have our challenges, behaviorally and other things with day to day how they are, but something like that where we came out of a delivery room and we were able to go home and then kind of start our life together. Part of what brought me to your academy and brought me to the stage is really to help others and make that impact and not taking it, knowing how precious it is and not taking that for granted. We our family, we're very close with friends who have, lost children, during pregnancy or, again, have gone through a lengthy stay either through the NICU or, some other, birth challenge. And then also even, now as little ones, in elementary school having challenges, educationally learning or attention and emotionally, socially, and those sorts of things. So it just, for me, it doesn't stop with my own family. I want to try to help and be a conduit with others to, like you say, have that empathy, connect people to emotionally on maybe how fortunate their situation is, or if they have a struggle, how we can try to help support them moving forward. So yeah, it's something every day. There's some aspect of my life, whether it's personal or professional, that it engages in that manner. And so the causes that I like to, really try to help and focus are healthcare causes, but a lot of them also are focused on, pediatric type issues and challenges and those sorts of things. I'm actually, I have an event, coming up in February that is around, it's an organization that helps fight pediatric brain tumors. And it's one of those where there is no, it's pretty much the end of the road for these children. It's just how long can they hold on, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. And what the money goes towards is funding research. It's for prolonging hope. And when you are a parent who it's out of your hands, it just, at that point, there's nothing that was you can really control other than your own hope and the hope that your child has. And so what this organization does, I immediately was drawn to it. We connected a few months ago, and then I'm really excited to do their event. But, it's to help fund research to prolong that period. If it's 6 months, let's try to get them to 9 months or 12 months until hopefully there can be some form of a cure or something surgically that can be done to help these kids have a life.
Sure. So you came to the America's Auction Academy in June of this year. Tell me how you made that decision. What prompted it, and then how did you pick Dallas, Texas?
Yeah, it's one of those things where a lot of things kind of came together. 19 is kind of our lucky family number. Both of my children have birthdays on the 19th of their month. And so 2019, it was interesting. I had kind of this accumulation of experiences and things that I was doing daily. So, professionally working with healthcare organizations, also doing events. So being a trained voice actor, I've been, voicing products and services, but also serving as host. I host, a few events around town in DC. And then I had the not-for-profit experience. And so when I'm putting together healthcare and not for profits, and then the love of communication and connection through hosting and through other things. I learned about auctioneering really from a close friend of mine who's really been a mentor throughout the process, who also went through your academy, and in connecting with him and kind of piecing together what I've kind of had been doing, it just seemed like such a match to try to get that licensing and certification to actually be able to impact these organizations that I already was doing things for, whether it's in a consulting role or actually event hosting as kind of an MC. It was one more kind of thing to have as a part of my services and offerings that really struck me in getting there and spending time in Dallas again. It confirmed that was the right direction. And I've been, it's 2 months after graduating your program, I passed my licensing exam for the state and already started booking events for next year.
Good.
So I'm in it.
You're in it. So tell me about how you got into doing the voice actor work. Tell me how that came about. What started that?
Yeah, there's absolutely a very definitive story around how that came about. I was a newlywed, so it's been a little over 10 years, but my wife and I were, newlyweds, and I'd sold my place and moved in with her. And back when people used to actually read newspapers, she had a newspaper out, and in the local section, there was some things about classes and other things. And she ran across a class, and it was titled very cleverly, "Get Paid to Talk." And, being in sales and that sort of thing. That's a great hook. Get paid. Yeah. Who doesn't want to get paid to talk, right? Yeah. So, in seeing that, she, it's really full credit to her. She passed that over to me and said, "Oh, this might be something worth checking out." And so I read it, and it was very brief, but it went into, how can you use your voice, to earn a paycheck. And so I went to the class, and it was downtown, and they put a mic just like this one in front of me. Each person who attended, there were probably about 20 people there. And and then you recorded a little something, a little copy. And then, of course, they call you back and say, "Hey, we think there's potential there. What do you think about our program?" Well, I was all in. I love to communicate. I love to connect with people. So they found the right prospect for sure. And I fell into it hook, line, and sinker. And it's been something, again, here almost 10 years later now, that I continue to do audition and contribute to organizations. A lot of, there's different types of voice acting. People think of character voices, right? Or cartoons and animations. Well, There's a whole, I would say the majority of the work that is out there is actually in a narration format, where you're educating someone on a product, or doing like a module of some kind, an e-learning module. And so that's the stuff that I kind of like. I kind of like being me, Rick, talking to you, Mike, my friend, and, "Hey, you know what? I tried this new product or this service, and man, you got to hear about this." So more of like a guy next door who knows what he's talking about, and, "Hey, wouldn't that be cool to try?" So, I've actually I've landed on some pretty neat opportunities, and actually being on the radio, being on WTOP here locally for a health system, being someone promoting a product and service. And having someone, actually hear it and then send me a note on Facebook saying, "I think I just heard you on the radio," kind of thing. It's been pretty cool.
So what is your, what's your long-term plan? What are you thinking about? Because you got your hands in a lot of different buckets, and I can tell you, as you know, what my schedule looks like. And I don't have 2 little kids at home. So what's the next 10 years look like for Rick Bernstein?
Well, fair enough. Fair question. Well, in 10 years, my kids will be approaching, juniors and seniors in high school. So I'll be preparing to be an empty nester.
You'll be at the ball games.
That's right. My wife and I have to look at each other and figure out what we're going to do with each other now. For me, family first and foremost. So, obviously staying really involved and engaged with their lives, and making them, be, very confident, resilient, independent young people. For me professionally, I mean, I've found my calling when it comes to an industry. If we're looking at something, I know you do a lot of real estate and so many other things in your world. And for me, I mean, I eat, sleep, and breathe healthcare, and healthcare is a big beast. You can be on the backside, stuff administrative that nobody sees, or you could be on the front side where you're really pushing a mission and, pushing the messaging and trying to make a difference and those sorts of things. It's such a broad industry, and there's so many things, there's so many complications with it too, to try to figure out. I'm fascinated with all of it. So it's going to continue to be in the healthcare industry, and in serving clients, clinically, but also, messaging, connecting, networking, and trying to help raise money for, for great causes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So now we pretty well know what you're going to do, because you're not going to be a doctor.
I won't have the MD after my name, but
they may call you.
But still,
they call me Dr. Jones, and I think they do that from an educational standpoint. I get that all the time. So you may be Dr. Bernstein. This could be something special. We may have figured it out.
Right. And if I'm not one, maybe I play one on TV or something. But
hey, I tell people that all the time too. Yeah, I stayed at Holiday Inn last night. Tell me a couple of things I want to talk about. One is, when you came to auction school, what was your perception before you got there, and what surprised you the most about it?
Well, it's funny because once you get into something and you treat it with the respect of it being a profession, you forget kind of what you initially thought of it, because now you see it with such big eyes as far as being a profession and something that really makes an impact. So the way that I understand and remember what I thought of auctioneering is when I tell everyone now I do this, and it's immediately goes to the chant and to, those types of things with auctioneering, talking fast and, different types of, whether it's automobiles or antiques or art or those sorts of things. But, what was interesting is that no one thinks about it in kind of the way how I am using it moving forward, and how so many do, that I've learned and met and networked through once coming through the program, is people doing this full time for good, for benefits, and for galas, and for not-for-profit organizations. I mean, it's absolutely its own kind of niche. And so, I've lost, I'm so into it now, and my world has been opened up to so many great people, so many giving people on tips and tricks and best practices on how to help your clients raise more money. And, I've networked a ton and really dove so far into it that, I almost kind of forgot what I thought going into it. But to me, I looked at it as a new challenge. I really haven't spent much time in Dallas other than, the airport in and out kind of thing. So it was an opportunity to just sit in a room with 40 other strangers, learn about what they do, people who are, working on a farm and doing real estate and, doing so many other things professionally, and looking at auctioneering as something that is a great complement to what they do professionally. So I've been in sales a long time. I love networking. I love connecting with new people. So I really enjoyed visiting with a lot of folks in person there, after class, before class. I've kept in touch with a few people too. And I just looked at it as a journey. I mean, professionally, but also, personally, just meeting some new friends and just some people doing some cool things.
Sure. Yeah, we certainly get a mixed bag of professions and what people do, and it's the one type of class, and I'm sure there's others like it, but it is it's a unique business. The industry as a whole, you literally can have someone that worked for the FDIC and be in the middle of banking, decide, you know what, I think I'm tired of being a banker and I want to become an auctioneer, and they decide to become an auctioneer, and then the guy sitting next to him is driving a truck for a living. And I mean, it's very different. I think it's even hard to explain to some people. I'm having a hard time explaining it myself. It's just the diversity I find very amazing. You can have someone that came to auction school that really didn't care anything about doing the chant, had no interest whatsoever, and would sit there and tell you, I'm never going to do the chant. And by the time we get through, they want to do the chant. And I think that's a testimony to the instructors that we have, and what we can do in 8 or 9 days is pretty phenomenal if you think about it.
It is. I mean, obviously, we covered a lot in that time period, and I know a lot of that is based on what is required as far as education, and to have to then go to the next step and those sorts of things. So you got to fit in as much as you can in that time frame. But coming back to the what is auctioneering, and to me, it's really just an extension of if you enjoy connecting, and then you enjoy actually, we all are people don't think of themselves as salesmen of any kind, but every day you're having to do something. You're having to sell yourself either at work, or you're having to sell something to get a commission check, or I have to sell my son on drinking water, so he stays hydrated,
or try to sell your kids. Absolutely.
Well, so every day we're selling, but we're connecting. And if anything, and I tell people even now professionally, even if it's nothing to do with the auctioneering piece, if I'm just consulting with the client on something, why not go to auctioneering school and just learn how to connect, how to learn, how to just kind of come out of your comfort zone. Because I know there were some in my class probably that didn't feel as comfortable as I crave a microphone. I crave being in front of a crowd. So for me, it just felt very seamless. But I almost look at it as something that people to develop themselves, even if sales isn't their profession, or being in front of a crowd spooks them a little bit, to just see what it is, because it's a great enterprise, and it's something, it's whatever you make of it. And, I chose to use this angle of the profession in a way to try to help make a difference for fundraising organizations, but you can do so many other things with it. And so it was a real eye opener for me, and something that I talk to people about very proudly, and almost try to get them thinking that way. If, okay, you won't actually go to the school and get the official training, what other ways are you trying to kind of hone your craft, or connect, or be more comfortable public speaking? For my kids, this microphone here, I have a couple of them. I do events. I bring it with me. I announce my son's baseball games. I introduce the players. We play walk-up music. We do all kinds of stuff, and I get them on there, and we do karaoke. We hook it up on our TV. Public speaking, I think, is one of these overlooked skill sets that we talk about, how you got to learn your reading, writing, and arithmetic at a very young age. I think public speaking should be that fourth one. I think that, getting comfortable in front of a crowd for a presentation, to talk to your peers, I think it's really one of those skill sets that will prepare you for life. And so I'm kind of doing that with my kids, and I've actually thought about doing some form of program in our community to try to get people, just putting, say whatever you want, right? Give it to a first grader, a second grader, and just maybe they just read a book, but they're in a microphone and they're in front of people, starting to get them comfortable with that.
Well, and you've heard me say this in school, and I tell people this all the time. I don't look at the auctioneer school, America's Auction Academy, as an auction school. I look at it as a life school, and I think there's a lot of life that's in that class that has nothing to do with auctioneering. I think we just happen to teach auctioneering, but I think we bring a lot to the table in regard to opening people's minds up, especially about public speaking, and how they present themselves, and standing in front of a group, because most of us, almost all of us at some time or another, are forced to stand in front of a group of people and talk. And I don't think there's anything worse than seeing someone that's so ill prepared that they and it may be of no fault of their own. It's just the fact that they haven't had the opportunities to do it.
Yeah. There's that you have. A lot of it comes with just life experience, and being comfortable in your own skin, I think, is one of those things that really it takes some work. It doesn't necessarily come naturally with somebody to have that self-confidence. But when you know yourself and you feel comfortable with yourself, and that just comes with time, with practice. You and I both spend enough time behind a microphone on stage to kind of know and see it maybe played back in videos, pictures, those kinds of things. You need that practice. You need to take pictures and record yourself. I mean, I'm my biggest critic when it comes to recording an audition. I'll record it, and then edit it and scrap it, and then re-record it and edit it and scrap it. I mean, I spend so much time to try to get that exact sound or that delivery. And, that just comes with practice, just doing it over and over and over again. But it really is something that I think everyone's going to have to interview for a job at some point in time. And, whether it's around the corner at the local coffee shop or if it's on Wall Street, you're going to have to be in front of somebody and sell and know who you are and sell yourself and be comfortable doing that to one person or a panel of people.
Sure.
And so yeah, it's a big thing. And those things that you talk about as far as an auctioneering school, I can't say that I knew going in that that's what I would be getting out, and those kinds of life types of skills. You don't think about that. You think about how it's advertised as something with auctioneering, but not, really it being an extension of the people business.
Yeah, for sure. You and I touched on something before we went on the air. We were talking about water, and tell me your thoughts about the value. Well, first off, I think we all know that our kids are not eating the greatest food in the world right now. If they're going to fast food places, if they're going to all the I don't care how good you think a fast food place is, it's not great food. And sometimes I think a lot of the food that we eat is just a semblance of what we really should be eating. I think we've learned over the years that you need a diet of vegetables. You need those things. You've heard it your whole life. You always hear this. Right. I hear people say all the time they don't drink enough water, and you and I both know that you need to drink a lot of water because the body is made up of water. And for someone to sit there and go, I've had friends over the years, and they go, "Oh, I don't drink water," and I'm just going like, "Wow," and they're living on a steady diet of Diet Coke and sweet tea and all the things that are going to clog you up and kill you. Because the soft drinks are all chemicals. That's not even real. And then the sugar that we're intaking, we already get way too much sugar. And so I had to really change my diet a few years ago, and I did it dramatically. Now I can cheat a little bit and enjoy it but I don't have a steady diet of fried. I don't do a steady diet of anything white. I'm not a big. I love all that stuff. I love mashed potatoes and baked potatoes, and I used to go to when I would go out. We didn't have any money when I was a kid, and I'm talking like when in the 60s. We didn't have money. We didn't go out to eat. You didn't go out to eat. You made food out of whatever you could forage, and we lived on a dairy farm for several years, and then moved into the city. And even then, if you don't have any money, you got to have a garden, and so we ate what we grew, and you can only eat so many tomatoes and so much okra and peas and stuff like that. So tell me, I want to hear because you are a health guy and you're the right guy to ask. Tell me what you think a 7 and a 9-year-old kid ought to eat, and what should they be drinking?
Yeah, well, it's funny because you become, if you're not focused on nutrition and yourself and your health, you surely become that way when you're an actual parent, and actually then, providing that and, nourishing, other people other than yourself. It's one of those things where we wash our cars, but we don't always work out. We take care of a lot of external material things, but we're not taking care for ourselves and our bodies and treating that as really, what's gonna really make or break us. So for me, I mean, it's a struggle. It's it's something that we've seen in our children behaviorally, that it's markedly different, when they have eaten and had water and been hydrated versus not. And it would be the same for us too. I mean, how would we feel, you and I, going all day without a sip of water, right? And their little bodies, I mean, it's kind of a perfect storm when you get in those formative years where their bodies are they're sponges, they're soaking up so many different stimulus all over the place. And how can they do that at their best if they're not nourished and they're not hydrated? And it goes to so many things. I think the first thing is access, like you say, having access. You had limited means growing up. You only had access to that garden. Okay, so it's interesting how we have access to so many things now with technology and overnight shipping, same day shipping. We have the access, but why isn't it getting to people? And that's when it comes to technology can't solve everything, right? It's the process. It's how do you do that? It's my wife and I making little charts together saying, did you drink? Did you do this? Did you do this? Great. We can have a treat. So it comes back to the process, and it's teamwork. It's tough. I mean, families, whether married, single, father or mother, it's coming up with some process, something that's predictable. Children, what I've learned, and speaking for my children, is they like predictability. They like structure. They like knowing that they feel that sense of comfort and security that they know at this time we're doing this. And it might seem like they're bucking it and not wanting to, being very confrontational or not wanting to kind of fall in line, but they crave that. They want to have that predictability. So, we do the best we can. I mean, we grocery shop the best we can. My wife happens to be a great cook, and we share the same values when it comes to meals and whether it's out or it's at home, and trying to keep track of things. Look, you're going to have your milkshakes and your ice creams and your, things that are just kind of thrown together. But we really do, we try to get that access. We try to come up with a program to make sure their water bottle is accessible. It's in their backpack. It's, when they come home, they always have water and milk and those kinds of things to drink. So providing that access is so important. And it's really at the call. It's at the root of so many things. And, I would say out there too, with your kids, anyone's kids who are showing some kind of challenge behaviorally, socially, emotionally, anything, that's the first place to start, because we scratched our heads for a long time with ours, on what's going on here? Why can't he play well with others and do those kinds of things? We didn't even think of hydration and nourishment as being that. Did he skip his snack? Did he not have his water bottle today? And when we started putting those pieces together, guess what? We saw differences. So,
well, now I know what I have to do with my grandson. We're gonna force feed him vegetables and give him lots and lots of water.
The water makes such a big difference. They do, and they don't want to drink. And
I know. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I see it every day. So if somebody wanted to get a hold of you to talk about your business, do you have a website?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've, before auctioneering and before kind of this venture of Bernstein Solutions Incorporated, again, where we, work with not-for-profit organizations to deepen their supporter relationships and increase their fundraising. They can find, those services and what we do at bernsteinsolutions.com. And certainly, again, you can reach me directly from that site, but you can also find me at thevoiceofdc.com. So the Voice of DC was established once I got into voice acting, and it's something where you can see a lot of my work. You can hear samples of some of the commercials I've done, some of the reads I've done, and some of the events and other kind of hosting MC types of work I've done. So both of those are easy ways to find me, and hopefully we can connect and see if I can help you in any way.
Sure. And your email is rick@bernsteinsolutions.com. Is that right?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's right. That's the easiest way to reach me.
Well, you have been our first remote broadcast on the Mike McGavel Jones Show. And so hopefully the quality is good. Nothing's ever perfect the first time, so you may have a couple of minutes where you look like one of those animated people with your lips moving quick. I don't know. There could be some of that. But Rick Bernstein in Virginia, we're glad to have you on the show today, and we appreciate you joining us and being a part of it. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much, Mike. And just one last little shout out to my World Series champion, Washington Nationals. Go Nats.
There you go. Well, God bless you. Take care of yourself. I look forward to seeing you again soon. So on behalf of everybody here in Dallas, Texas, with the Mike McGavel Jones Show, Travis, our producer, and the folks here in Dallas, we appreciate you joining us. See you next time. God bless. And we bid you adieu from Dallas.